Hey all, happy Friday. Finally getting around to doing this video I've been meaning to do for a long time. I know I've been kind of putting it off, but it's been a busy summer for me, so finally just getting around to this. But I wanted to do a video just kind of talking about some of the things I've learned from this build and hopefully pass that on to you so you don't go through the same issues. Obviously these are all pertaining to an El Camino 83, but they could probably be used for most G bodies, I would say. But a lot of lessons learned here, so I just kind of wanted to do a debrief and kind of talk about some of the things that I learned and some of the issues I went through, and kind of pass that on to you. So hopefully this is helpful. If it is, just let me know. If you have any questions I don't answer, put them in the comments or whatever you feel like. Just let me know. But I have a little list, so one of the first things that I kind of went through with this build is, first of all, you got to take off these coil packs, obviously, when you put the engine in the car. That was kind of a mistake on my part, just kind of a rookie mistake, and I punched a hole in the air box, which I actually did a pretty good job of covering it up, so you can't really see it anymore with some fiberglass repair. But yeah, these coil packs have like a sharp end on the back, and this head unfortunately is closer to the air box than this side. This is the forward head, and this the passenger side head is the one that's farther back on the V. So it would have been much easier if they would have had those reversed, but Chevy in their wonderful designing decided to put the head that's closer or farther back, closer to the air box, unfortunately. So just a rookie mistake. So when you go ahead and put the engine in, definitely take these guys off, because otherwise you'll puncture the airbox just like I did. Another one of the things that I kind of learned with this build is, I'll tell you a little bit about the exhaust. First of all, so these are shorty headers. They are designed for an S10 LS Swap. But I got them for really cheap. I got them for probably about I think 120 bucks off of eBay, and they're eBay, so they're probably made in deep red China. But you can kind of see the coating is starting to come off maybe a little bit already. But I couldn't be happy with them, to tell you the truth. They fit like a glove. They really do. So they fit perfectly right underneath the airbox, and it's kind of hard to see with everything in the way, but they do fit really well. The only complaint that I have about them is that for these heads in particular, and the headers in particular, I should say, you need to use these MSD plugs. The stock plugs will not fit, or the plug boots, I should say. The plug boots will not fit. What I had to do with this side, I believe, I had to trim down the boots a little bit with the stock plugs, because they wouldn't fit. So not a huge deal, but if you're going to do that, you might as well just get these MSD plug wires. So that's my pitch for MSD, because they fit. So this side, no fitment issues. So yeah, just the biggest thing is those plug boots will not fit on the passenger side if you're using the stock plugs. I keep saying plugs, the stock plug wires. So just something to keep in mind when you're doing that. What else? No real issues with the water pump fitment or anything like that. I did change out the thermostat when I put the water pump back on, so no real fitment issues there. Let's see. Another fitment concern on the El Camino, at least, the 83. The alternator is set on the driver's side on the LS setup, but on the stock engine it's actually over here on the passenger side. So just something to note. You're gonna have to extend these wires when you connect the new alternator. But again, you're probably gonna have to wire in the new the new connector anyway, so you might as well extend it then while you're at it. Another thing of note, the power steering pump, the pressure hose is really tight to get in there. You can barely see it in there, but it's really tight and really hard to get in there. So I had difficulty with that. I think I was able to get it on eventually, but it was primarily the pressure hose because it's like right there behind the block. So what I would recommend is, if you can, take the power steering pump off and put the hose on, and then put the power steering pump back on, or prior to putting the accessory drive on. So that's what I would recommend, just because it's a pain in the ass to get it on there. Let's see what else. Mounting plates, they are the standard ones you find on eBay. I have them an inch set back, based on kind of everything I've learned so far from the other videos. Seems to be working well. I had no problem with the transmission fitment, so it seemed like it fit in like it was made for it, really. It fit right on the cross member just as it was supposed to, so that was great. Clamshell mounts, didn't replace those. Those are still standard. I should have replaced the actual rubber mounts onto the frame, but there's screws, or the bolts that are down in there. There's a really small access panel, but you can't get to it unless you maybe fish a wire through there or take off the control arms to get to it. So I don't know, it was just a lot of work, and at that point I just wanted to get the engine in, so I didn't mess with it, which I probably should have done. But just something to note, if you're going to do that, just you're going to have to do all that kind of pulling the whole suspension off to get access to them. So kind of a pain, but anyway. So no air conditioning just yet. I'll get to that in a second. What else? I actually have a little note card I'm going off of here. There's the MSD box. As you can see, it's wired in. The shop that did it did a really good job of cleaning up the wiring. It's really clean looking. I'm very happy with how they did the wiring and tucking it all away and making it look really nice. Let's see. You obviously need your crankcase breathers, which I have. Fitment with the throttle and TV cables wasn't too bad. It was pretty much plug and play with that. Let's see. Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. So the biggest thing, and I don't know if you can see it here, and I'll try to get down in there, or maybe even crawl into the car. There is, when I was pulling the old engine out, I dropped the starter, and it kind of fell and tore some of the wiring. So what happened was, this main ignition wire, right here, this is a red wire, and it goes from the starter to the into the fuse box, and that's your main ignition wire. There's some good wiring diagrams on, I think it's Malibu Racing or something, online, but I couldn't even get the car to start, or to even click or turn over or anything. I had no power, so I had a feeling that was the issue, that there were some fusible links that I broke when I dropped the starter. But that was the issue, and just something to note, that controls everything. So you're not going to get any power at all if you damage those fusible links. So I ended up having to tie in a fusible link to one of them, fix the problem. So just a lesson learned there. Careful with your starter, don't drop it, obviously. Let's see. The other thing about the headers I forgot to mention, they're really close to the fuel line. The fuel line is the stainless steel braided one. The black braided ones, that's the transmission cooler lines. you can kind of see it's so close there. It's almost touching them, and it's really hot. So that's a thing I don't like about them. What I probably might do, since the coating is already kind of peeling off or whatever it's doing, I might just wrap them up with some header wrap or something, just to keep the engine bay a little bit cooler, because they do run really hot. And that kind of brings me to another point. As you can see here, I have the fuel line wrapped in this insulation wrap because I had really bad vapor lock when I first started driving around with it. It was the vapor lock was just terrible. It would I would be sitting at a stoplight for like 5 minutes or something like that and give it gas, and it would just die. So really bad vapor lock, just something to keep in mind. You know, there's some really hot temperatures you're working with here with these headers like this. So maybe wrap them up. Definitely, this is, I'll talk about it maybe in a minute, but this is something I'm hoping to fix next. The other thing pretty much is the power steering pulley. I know we talked about power steering earlier, but I forgot to mention this. I believe this is the 6-inch pulley. I think there is a 5-inch pulley. For me, this one fit perfectly. As you can see, I still have, I don't know, maybe a 1/2 inch of clearance between the gearbox and the actual pulley itself. So, and the actual return hose. So I've got enough space. I'm happy with it. But you know, if space is going to be an issue for you, you might try that 5-inch pulley. Give you a little bit more clearance. What else? So really, I think that's about it. Oh, the other thing, the starter bolts. Obviously, you can't see the starter bolts now. You can barely kind of see them down there. But so one of the things I noticed with this, doing some research and stuff, is it does seem like there are 2 different types of starters, and maybe different types of starter bolts. The bolts that I got from O'Reilly, and they were not the right size at all for this car. So for some reason, I believe they're 11 by 1.5 inch thread, the ones that came from O'Reilly, and so I don't know if my block was maybe tapped or something earlier, or what, but the ones that I got were too long, and they were definitely not the right thread pitch. So just something to note. There might possibly be 2 separate types of starter bolts. I've heard there are, and I've heard that they're not. So just something to keep in mind. But the ones that I got from O'Reilly were the wrong ones, and this was for an 07 Silverado. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. But anyway, so what's next? Well, obviously, as I mentioned, no air conditioning. Here's the air conditioning cable right here. I left it pretty close so someone could see it. So that's probably the next thing that's going to happen, because I haven't had air conditioning in probably 5 or 6 years in this car, so it'd be nice to have air conditioning finally, especially when it gets hot down here in the summer. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Oh, the choke doesn't work. It is connected, but it's not connected to anything. I mean, I pulled the computer out of the car when I was doing the swap. So since the computer's not in there, I don't know how it's getting any power, which I don't think it is. So the choke is not working at this point. So that's also another thing to fix. And then of course the biggest thing is this vapor lock issue. What I'll end up doing is I'll probably have to run another return line back to the tank, just to create like a complete circuit, and hopefully keep the fuel cool, because the vapor lock is a lot better now, but it's still bad. And I imagine with these guys being so close to the header like that, it just melts or evaporates the fuel. So that's probably coming up next. Carburetor is a Brawler 650. It runs pretty good. Doesn't run so good when it's cold, but I think it needs to step up the jets a little bit, maybe make it run a little richer. That's the only thing I think it needs at this point. But other than that, yeah, the only other thing is I think there might be a slight oil leak coming from the front cover where the crank snout comes out, and I believe there's another oil leak coming out the back around the torque converter, which could be a pain. It doesn't look like it's much. It's probably very insignificant, but anyway, that's kind of one of the other things that I'd like to fix at some point. I can deal with it for now, but hopefully I'll get to it. Anyway, so that's all for that. Now I'll talk about how much it costs, because I'm sure you're all wondering that. So one of the things I've done for this build is I've kept a really meticulous record of everything that I've spent on. And so far, I would say for what I've done, it was kind of a budget build, minus the work I had done for the wiring and the dyno. So if you look at everything total, the engine cost was about $7,300. I'm just kind of showing you the part numbers for some of the stuff that I put in it. But if you take away that the labor for doing all this fancy wiring and getting the MSD box up, if you're comfortable with that yourself, which I'm not going to really go into detail on that in this video, but if you're comfortable with doing that kind of wiring yourself, and just you don't care about how clean it looks, kind of like I wanted it really clean looking, so if you don't care about that so much, you can probably get rid of that $3,500, and then that would put you kind of down to about $38,000. So that's not bad, almost $4,000 for a 5.3 build with a mild cam. I would say that's probably about average, but you can't complain, really. I mean, when you're talking about a crate engine for $6,000, $7,000, almost $10,000, spending $3,800 or so is not bad at all. So, but anyway, I just kind of wanted to go through that. If you have anything specific you'd like to know about this, just hit me up. I can give you individual prices. I tried to show you that a little bit on this spreadsheet that I have, and I'll kind of zoom back in on that spreadsheet. But this just kind of shows you some of the stuff that I've put into it, and I'd say it's pretty worth it at this point. It's running good. It's taking good care of me. We'll see how the first oil change looks and if there's anything in the oil or anything like that. But I'm happy with it. Sounds good, runs good. Couldn't be happier. So I would highly recommend it. If you have any questions, just let me know. And if you need any more videos or anything else, let me know. Thanks.